Hello, my name is Akim Harelman and I'm here with Professor Amy Verdun from the University of Victoria to talk about economic and monetary integration in Europe. The single market is at the core of the European integration project. Can you explain what the single market is and why it is so important for the European Union?
So the single market is the system whereby there is freedom of movement of goods, services, capital and labor. So this is the member states' prime creation, so being able to have that deeply integrated market. Now we shouldn't confuse this with, for example, the Schengen Agreement. In the Schengen Agreement, only a selection of member states are part of this, and they've decided to take away the barriers for free movement. But in all of the EU, these freedoms exist, and it's in a sense the crown jewels of the integration process.
Could you use the example of Brexit to illustrate some of the benefits of single market membership for the EU member states?
So Brexit is when the United Kingdom left the European Union. And as it left the European Union, it also decided to leave the single market. So leaving the single market means that a country no longer has that access to that free movement. And with it come other dimensions, for example, tariffs, or also red tape when moving goods and services across the border. A recent think tank, it's called Britain in a Changing Europe, has found that 6% more money is spent on goods and services since the Brexit procedure has taken place. And that's in part not just only tariffs, but also the time lost and the red tape, and not having full access to markets so that one would need to take the goods and services from other places. So that whole package together is that increase that this has been recently calculated.
In the 1990s, the EU moved forward with the project of economic and monetary union, which led to the introduction of a single currency, the euro, which is now used by 19 member states. How does economic and monetary union work?
The economic and monetary union is a system whereby member states have decided to pool their sovereignty together and have a central bank, the European Central Bank, set monetary policy for those countries that are a member of the euro area. When they do that, they no longer have their own central bank set independent monetary policy. So it means they don't have that instrument anymore. So instead, at the EU level, there is one currency issued and managed by that European Central Bank. Now, in the rest of the EU, there are still member states that have their own currency, but they set their own monetary policy and manage it themselves.
Between about 2010 and 2012, serious fiscal, economic and banking crises developed in a number of member states of the euro area. This is often described as the euro crisis. In very general terms, why did this crisis develop and what changes did it trigger in economic and monetary union?
In 2007 and 2008, a global financial crisis erupted, and it impacted a number of member states quite severely, particularly those with a large financial sector were seriously affected. But a few years later, a country, Greece, had indicated having a much higher budgetary deficit than what first was been announced. A new government discovered this and came to the fore with this information. The rating agencies downgraded Greece, and it was more difficult for the government of Greece to refinance their debt. It led to a situation where Greece could possibly have needed to leave the euro area. But there was a clause called the no bailout clause that did not allow the member states as a collective, the EU, to pay for this bailout. So an arrangement was made where member states would support one another to make it possible for Greece to refinance its debt and other countries that were in a similar situation. Once that was done, it was decided to set up a more permanent system to help a member state in need. And that started a new steps of collaboration in the area of banking and financial support.
How did the COVID-19 pandemic impact economic and monetary integration in the EU?
So the COVID-19 pandemic is a bit different from the financial crisis. In the financial crisis, the emphasis was put on whether member states had prepared well or had done all the fundamentals. So to get loans at that time required quite a bit of what they call conditionality, so restructuring and so on. In the pandemic crisis, it was felt that member states could not have seen it coming and did not need to do quite as many restructurings to observe before getting grants and loans. So some, but not as much. So that's one main difference. A temporary system was set up to help member states to go over this difficult time. The EU also managed to do a number of things together in terms of vaccines and also protective gear, and have early warnings to help one another be alerted to the upcoming situation. So a couple of areas in which some crisis management was done, as well as a bit more financial support for the member states in need.